Oh, what a day it is, right here in south of Orlando on my way to Miami, Florida. I'm Jonathan Morris Schwartz, and welcome to today's podcast and YouTube video. Briefly going to discuss the American Ponzi scheme that we are now involved with. The point that I bring out in today's Substack newsletter, which I encourage you to read at jonathanschwartz@substack.com, involves the fact that in some ways we're in a mixed blessing with the Federal Reserve and Washington and politicians, in this sense. Up until the pandemic, the only people getting bailed out were the zombie companies, the billionaires, the Wall Street companies that arguably, and people who arguably didn't need it, because we were stuck in this close to zero interest rate necessity. The minute the Fed said anything that could be even remotely interpreted as hostile to the stock market, or even hinted that sometime in the distant future rates may go up. I mean, the Fed literally could say, I think in 100 years, rates may go up a quarter point, and the market's going to tank, because it is now used to the Fed being its sugar daddy. So we've been bailing out the rich. We know this story. We know the story of TARP. We know that the housing crisis, really struck people at the lower level income levels. People lost their homes. Nobody on Wall Street or none of the titans lost any money. All that toxic debt was swept under some rug that just now sits in debt, in the country's debt. But when the pandemic hit, the government under Trump, and now under Biden to a greater degree perhaps, since the government's more liberal now, has had to bail out the everyday guy, the poor and the working class. Anyone making $75,000 or less has been getting not a ton of money, but a taste of free money. $1,200 here, $600 there. It looks like $1,400 or $2,800 if you have a dependent. Thousands of dollars. For some families, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 is coming into their checking accounts. Now, what does this mean? It means that the Federal Reserve now and Washington is printing out of every orifice in their body. I mean, they're printing to keep the rich or richer, and now they're printing effectively universal income. So what does this mean? Well, it means one of a few things. First of all, maybe there is no such thing as inflation. I mean, remember when we were young in high school, the little bit of economics that was part of our high school curriculum, the teacher would say, I bet it would be nice if there was a money printing machine and we could all just print ourselves $1 million and we'd all be millionaires. Wouldn't that be great? Why can't we do that? And of course the answer is inflation, because the more money you print, the price of a gallon of milk could go to $100 or $500. We've seen this in other countries. We haven't seen it here for a myriad of reasons, but that's the theory. Although we're testing that theory, aren't we? I mean, we're printing 20, we're going to have a $30 trillion debt soon. There's no limit to it, particularly now that we're bailing everybody out. Almost all Americans are getting some form of bailout. What's the consequence of this? Well, the best case scenario is that we keep printing, and at some point there is a collapse of some sort. There's either inflation or some form of economic collapse, and we enter into some new world where the dollar has no value and we barter and come up with a new currency, or come up with a new way of, I give you a chicken, you give me a horse, or some different form of economy that indeed equalizes things. There won't be people about to become trillionaires. There won't be as many billionaires, but there will be a new equitable system of which we can explore more in future podcasts. The worst case scenario is ancient Rome. This concludes today's podcast. Please continue to follow me. I'm Jonathan Morris Schwartz. It is My Manic Brain, Sex, Politics, and Everlasting Life. Thank you. Have a great day.